So I like to jokingly describe myself as a sloth because sloth typically describes like a lazy person who doesn't want to do much or isn't really invested in doing things, which I feel like is me because I have spent my entire life trying to do as few things as possible, at least insofar as like I've I've been trying to lessen my obligations. Like for example, uh, when I was homeschooled, which was for most of my schooling career, the vast majority, I would go in the back of the book on stuff my mom was testing me on, and on the back of the school book for the answer key. And I would read the answer key and answer the questions that way. Um, Even when I went into public school, there were sometimes answer keys in the back of books, or I could look up the book on the internet and find the answers to my questions that way, or just look up the question, depending on what it was. I would cheat off of other people's tests. I would hide calculators when I wasn't supposed to have one and things like that. I would keep notes of the kind of questions that I thought were going to come up, which I guess that's not technically cheating, that's just being an effective student, so on that front I guess I was good. But I would try to cut corners as much as I possibly could, and I really did not want to do my schoolwork unless it was one of two things: accelerated reading or accelerated math. I was so obsessed with accelerated math when I was in school that I would just endlessly do it. I would do it during break time, I would do it during the playground time, I would do it at the end of the day when you're waiting for your buses to come. I would even do it on the bus when I was supposed to be doing my homework. I would do it during lunch at school instead of talking to other kids. I fucked with AM heavy. I loved AM so much. And I think it was because it felt like math was like a video game. I could just sit there and do it all day, and it was fun. I fucked with it. But what I really didn't like was tests. I liked AM tests, I guess, because it felt like it was, leading me to have a bigger score in my mind is similar to a video game. But I couldn't really see the point in standardized tests and all the classroom work that I was doing. I was so bored with it, and I would try to take any opportunity I could to talk to another student or to just not pay attention or sleep. I slept my way through school to the extent that I was even there, and then I ended up, of course, dropping out of school when I was in ninth grade. But the reason I bring up the fact that I was so obsessed with AM is because I feel like it's indicative of a broader tendency in my life or personality, which is the fact that it's not so much that I am fundamentally lazy, as in it's not so much that there is nothing in life that interests me that I want to work towards. It's more so that I don't want to work towards the things that society tells me I should. I don't want to do the things that society has set out for me, that society suggests I ought to do. I have tried to wiggle my way out of that stuff as much as humanly possible, and it's had some consequences. So the other thing that I did with school, but prior to me actually dropping out of school, was I took as many sick days as I possibly could. Sometimes when I wasn't even sick, a lot of the time because I was sick. And in one grade, it actually led me to have to go to truancy court. I had to go to court, like in front of a judge, for my lack of attendance. And thankfully, I wasn't convicted in that case. It all went away. In Tennessee, for some reason, they charge the kids with truancy. They don't actually charge the parents, which I feel like is a really weird law. But the judge knew my grandfather very well, thought I was a good kid and let me go. And that was something I never had to worry about again, thankfully. And that was the only time I ever had to, go before a judge in that way. Stayed in good shape ever since. But it was an example, kind of my many attempts at dodging the system, dodging my obligations. If I could stay home and play video games or read my books or do research online or make YouTube videos, I would have gladly done that. I took any opportunity that I could to do that. And to this day, this is the situation I'm in now. Like, I'm a NEET, I'm on disability, and I ended up spending a huge chunk of my teenage years working toward getting on disability. Now, I say that I didn't really have any goals or anything that I wanted to work towards, and I sort of say that this is still the case now. But there was something that I really did want to work towards. I wanted to work towards having as few IRL obligations as possible, and I wanted to work towards not having to participate in the systems that govern us, namely work, school, and so forth. And so I had heard about disability from an 8chan thread when I was like 14 or 15. I was reading online about it. I saw these various guides on how to navigate the system if you're in America. And I would go to YouTube and scour the internet. There was one YouTube channel I watched called like Social Security Secrets, which described all the different pieces of evidence that you would need in a court of law in order to get on disability. And like, I already knew that I was mentally fucked. I knew that even if it wasn't autism, that I probably had something like that going on. I knew that I was suicidal. I knew that I was depressed. I knew that I had been having traumatic flashbacks for basically my entire life to physical and sexual abuse. I knew that I was not like other people and was facing problems that most of the people that were around me couldn't relate to. And so I wasn't quite sure if this stuff was disabling or not, but it seemed pretty disabling to me. And so I pursued psychiatric care for a number of years, including many inpatient hospitalizations, both because I needed that treatment and because I thought, well, if I accept this treatment and actually go through with this, maybe there's a lifeline for me that the government has in store, and so I shouldn't just kill myself. Because that's what I had been thinking, really. I had thought that if I'm not going to be able to live my own way, if I have to work a job, then I should just kill myself. And thankfully I received a lot of psychiatric treatment, and the psychiatrist that I had worked with actually did think that I was disabled and that I deserved that kind of income, and I was able to get approved for said income. But if I hadn't, I probably would have died. I mean, I don't know. Like, I would have tried to coast off of whatever other money or service I could receive for as long as I could, but yeah, I probably would have killed myself. Because on some fundamental level, I do not feel connected to the rest of the world as other people do. I feel like, and I've described this in videos many times, like the game that everyone else is playing is not a game that I know the rules to. And moreover, everything in this world was structured and designed for people who sense things and operate fundamentally different from me. I'm sure a lot of other autistic people can relate. So I had fixated on going through this treatment and trying to gather as much evidence as I possibly could in order to prove that I actually am as fucked up as I say that I am. I knew that it was the case, and doctors knew that it was the case, but I had to go through this extensive system, and I had to understand the paperwork and how it all worked and how to actually get there. But I was willing to do the research and put in the effort necessary to, well, not have to put in the effort necessary to work a job if that meant that I would have a mental health breakdown in the future. And there were times when I was off of disability when I actually had to get a job and did, and I had attempted suicide as a result of working those jobs, of being in employment. There were situations where I had psychotic breaks as a result of being in employment, and those experiences ended up serving as arguments for me to get back on disability in the future. Even though I had actually at that point had just been trying my best, thinking that maybe perhaps working is for me and I can do it just like everyone else, only to find myself in those very difficult circumstances mentally. So all of this is to say, I spent a number of years trying as hard as I could to get on the government money that I am now. And I learned a lot about how the system works and what I should do in order to get into it. And now that I am able to live as a NEET with some financial support from the government, I feel like I was able to succeed in what my goals were. My goals were to have some sort of lifeline where I no longer had to kill myself, right? Where I no longer had to be homeless at least. And now I'm able to, do my own thing and exist. And I guess that's the life of a sloth, at least a sloth like me, right? It's not so much that I don't do things. It's not so much that I can't put effort into things or do work of sorts, but it has to be a work that immediately interests me, entices me, or else I will not, I'll not get very far. When I'm learning to play guitar and I experience those difficult parts, that anguish from not quite getting where I want to be, not quite getting where I need to be at, I take it in stride because it's actually something I want to do. Whereas all these other things that aren't directly related to my obsessive interests are things that make me want to kill myself for every minute that I have to engage in them. That make me wish that I just could go to sleep and not wake up for every minute that I have to engage with them. And that's no life to live. A much better life to live is one that you can enjoy, one that you feel happy participating in, one that you can manage, I mean, if you're alive, right, you've got a lot of possibilities laying before you. But if you're doing something that constantly makes you feel like you ought to be dead, well, and you might as well be. That's not really living, is it? And I feel thankful that the government is able to recognize the various problems that I face in the real world and the disabling factors that I experience that lead me to needing this help. I feel very thankful that I'm able to receive it in the first place. And moreover, I'm thankful for the fact that I can live in the way, at least somewhat the way that I want to. Because if I wasn't doing that, who knows if I'd really be here today still.